This video is brought to you by Audible. Hey brother! Guys, before I get started today, spoilers coming for the Crimes of Grindelwald. You have been warned. Guys, this past weekend we had a wonderful meetup down in Orlando where we went and saw The Crimes of Grindelwald with you, and it was so much fun! Which was amazing because we got to hear so many different points of view about the movie from so many different Potterheads. And so many of you had great ideas, and so today we're gonna dive into one of them, which had to do with that mysterious blood pact between Dumbledore and Grindelwald. Today we want to figure out if that blood pact between these two super powerful wizards is what directly caused Ariana Dumbledore's death. Hey, brother! Guys, we have to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, Audible, and introduce you to the Super Carlin Book Club. Here's how it's going to work. We're gonna pick a book which you can download by going to audible.com/SCB or by texting SCB to 500-500. That book will be absolutely free with your free trial, and for a limited time, Audible is running their monthly membership for just $6.95 a month for the next 3 months. Then, next month on January 4th at 7 p.m. on our Twitch channel, we're going to be doing a live hangout where you guys can tune in and let us know the thoughts on the book we're talking about. And that book this month just so happens to be An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. So use our code, download the book, totally free, tune in on January 4th, be a part of the conversation. First, let's just kick things off by discussing what even is a blood pact, because this is the very first time we've seen it in the wizarding world. A blood pact is actually pretty simple. It's basically the physical manifestation of a promise between two wizards sealed with blood. The pact between Dumbledore and Grindelwald seems to, at the very least, protect each of them from attacks from the other. We see the pact made between Albus and Grindelwald during Albus's Mirror of Erised flashback. Each of them cuts their hands with their wands, joins them together, the blood kind of spirals together and makes this really cool looking pendant guy. Side note, you wanna know what I totally hate is that in movies they always hold any kind of like necklace or pendant just like this, as if they just got hired at like Fink's Jewelers or something. It is spun silver, it has kind of a wandy type shape, and it has blood, well, your blood, of course. Would you like it gift wrapped? Also, did you happen to notice that during the Mirror of Erised scene, the wand that Dumbledore is holding is not the wand that we see him holding for the rest of the movie? Instead, it's actually the wand that we saw in the original promotional poster for the movie, like way back when, before there was even a trailer. Supposedly, J.K. Rowling arrived on set one day, saw it, and thought that it looked too much like the Elder Wand, but our theory is that it's just the brother of the Elder Wand. Full video by clicking the card. Anyway, when you first see it, you don't really have any idea what's going on, but by the end of the movie, Dumbledore does reveal what this little pendant does. Or rather, Newt just kind of takes a stab in the dark and gets it 100% correct. Newt says, "It's a blood pact, isn't it? You swore not to fight each other." And Dumbledore just nods bitterly, ashamed of himself. And in that moment, you're like, oh, I totally get it. It's not that he can't move against Grindelwald because he doesn't want to or doesn't think he can defeat him or anything. It's that he magically can't go against him right now. In a way, it's kind of like an unbreakable vow, except instead of one person promising to help another person do a thing and if they don't, they die. But in this case, both parties agree to something, and it seems like there's some version of a magically binding contract held inside of a physical object. Which in a lot of ways kind of makes me think that a blood pact is sort of like a Horcrux for an unbreakable vow. Which, strangely, immediately makes it sound like dark magic, which is confusing because it seems like it's sort of forged through love. At least on one end of the spectrum, something tells me that Grindelwald maybe didn't feel quite the same way about Albus as Albus did about Grindelwald, but instead recognized a threat in Dumbledore and used his feelings against him to actually form a magical shield of protection. In a way, it seems like the most romantic gesture possible. Like, we agree to not harm each other. But at the same time, it seems like every other instance of blood being used in magic at all, it's typically dark and typically irreversible. For example, unicorn blood will keep you alive even if you are within an inch of death, but at the same rate, you also live the rest of your life a half-life or a cursed life. Whatever that means. The only person we ever actually see do it is Quirrell, and I guess you could make the argument that the reason Voldemort had him do it to begin with is to take away half of his life so that there could be another life living inside of him, which kind of makes sense. Nagini, we know, of course, was born with a blood curse, meaning that eventually she would turn into a snake forever, and Voldemort uses some crude magic that basically forces people to injure themselves before entering his little Horcrux cave. And all those seem pretty bad, but then there's Harry himself, whose mother's sacrifice lives inside of his blood, which ultimately kind of ends up forming a blood pact between Harry and Voldemort. One of the many reasons why Voldemort can't defeat Harry is because he specifically uses his blood during his own revival.
Blood of the enemy forcibly taken.
In true Voldemort fashion, it's basically the worst idea ever. Although, maybe he had to do it that way. Maybe it's like an ingredient where it has to be the blood of your enemy, although that really could have basically been any other wizard. Moving on! Blood pacts. They're kind of new to us, which means that we don't really know all that much about them, other than the fact that both parties willingly enter the agreement, and it seems like the only protection granted is from one another. But like with anything, this really brings up more questions than it does give us answers. For example, do you have to be in possession of the pendant for the protection to work, or is it like as long as the pendant exists, you can't attack one another? Why on earth, if this is such a valuable thing, is Grindelwald just toting it around with him like he just picked it up at Fink's Jewelers? You'll see that there's very fine craftsmanship here. The chain is made of sterling silver and is 20 inches long. Either way, maybe this is where Voldemort came up with the idea of hiding all of his super powerful magical objects. And ultimately, I don't think possession matters at all. Going back to the conversation between Newt and Dumbledore, after confirming what the artifact actually is, Newt asks Dumbledore whether or not he can destroy it, and Dumbledore says, maybe. Which to me pretty much means that as long as the pact exists, neither one can act. Which does help us understand why Grindelwald would be carrying it around with him at all times. After all, Dumbledore is his only worthy adversary, and he is the only person who can't actually attack him. So at the end of the day, the safest place to keep it is on his person. Unless that is, of course, you know, there's a random niffler who happens to steal it from you in what seemed like a pretty obvious way. Like, how did he not notice? Either way, the bigger issue that all of you maybe were slowly coming to the realization on, like we did, is the timing of the Blood Pact and its creation, because it's kind of a huge problem. We know from Dumbledore himself in Deathly Hallows that he does not see Grindelwald at all between the years of 1899, the famous duel between himself, Grindelwald, and Aberforth, and 1945, during the duel where he finally defeats him. So we know from the scene in the mirror that they make the pact before the famous duel, but we also know that then the duel happens afterwards and they shouldn't be able to attack each other because of the pact. What gives? Well, if we go back to Deathly Hallows, we can see how the duel itself started. And then you know what happened. Reality returned in the form of my rough, unlettered, and infinitely more admirable brother. I did not want to hear the truths he shouted at me. I did not want to hear that I could not set forward to seek Hallows with a fragile and unstable sister in tow. The argument became a fight. Grindelwald lost control. That which I had always sensed in him, though I pretended not to, now sprang into terrible being. And Ariana, after all my mother's care and caution, lay dead upon the floor. So my new interpretation of this situation, with the knowledge of the Blood Pact in mind, is that the meat of this fight was really between Aberforth and Grindelwald, with Dumbledore really just playing defense for both sides. I imagine it went something like this. Grindelwald says, "Hey, we're gonna go leave and look for Hallows," and Aberforth is like, "No, you're not," and he was like, "Yes, we are," and he's like, "No, we're not. Yes, we are. No, we're not." Meanwhile, Albus is in the corner like, "Potato!" Spot on Dumbledore impression, if I say so myself. Point is, he's not actually fighting Grindelwald in this fight, so the Blood Pact really isn't in play yet. But I think that it eventually does come into play if we go back to what Dumbledore says while he's drinking the death potion in Half-Blood Prince. "Don't hurt them! Don't hurt them! Please, please, it's my fault. Hurt me instead." Young Dumbledore and old Dumbledore? Well done, me. Well done. Point is, Dumbledore is almost certainly having flashbacks to this specific duel, and it seems that Grindelwald has found a way to overpower Aberforth and Ariana and is just actively torturing them, and Dumbledore is unable to do anything at all because of the Pact. But I think at some point, not knowing what else to do, he has to intervene. He steps in and attacks Grindelwald, and Grindelwald attacks back. Which, of course, per the Blood Pact, is not allowed to happen. So it activates and just redirects their spells in every which direction. Each of them is blown backwards, and each of them has a spell bounce off in some random direction. One of them hitting and killing Ariana. This explanation satisfies every requirement necessary for Ariana's death. Albus doesn't know whether or not it was his spell that snuffed out her life. Aberforth, of course, knows it wasn't his spell that caused it, and it allows the Blood Pact to still make sense. And it means when Dumbledore says that he cannot move against Grindelwald, it's not just that there's a magical pact in place that prevents him from attacking him, but he can't risk the collateral damage, because the last time he fought him, it cost him everything. And guys, again, we have to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, Audible. Again, if you go to audible.com/SCB or text SCB to 500-500, you get a free month trial. And again, for a limited time, they are running a special promotion where you can get the first 3 months at just $6.95 a month. That is more than 50% off the normal cost associated. And just for signing up for the free trial, you will also get a free book. I would highly recommend An Absolutely Remarkable Thing, so you can come tune in to our live stream book club where Jay and I are going to sit down and discuss it at length. The book club will be taking place on January 4th, 7 p.m. on our Twitch. Be sure to tune in, join the conversation. We can't wait to discuss it with you. And guys, for my question of the day, what do you think? Is this Blood Pact dark magic, or does the love override it? Be sure to leave your thoughts in the towel section down below. Also, are you guys looking for that last minute gift for that person that's oh so hard to shop for? You want to know what's great? Coffee. You want to know what's even better? Carlin Brothers coffee. And we're running a special bundle right now where you can get a mug and a bag of beans, cheaper than ever. But guys, as always, thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you'd like some more Crimes of Grindelwald action from us, you can check out this video right here where we talk about Dumbledore's dark twin, or this video right here to figure out how McGonagall could be in this movie. But Jay, that's all I've got for you today, man. I will see you on Tuesday.